Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today, we're discussing a 2010 model year launch that included 58 pieces, as you see it right here in white gold. This is the Montblanc Collection Villeret 1858 Vintage Chronograph, a timepiece that fuses Minerva watchmaking with the Montblanc name and legacy. This is the best of what the Montblanc brand has to offer on the watchmaking side. Of course, the Lug factory at Montblanc can make over 100,000 watches a year, and they're worthy timepieces. But the factory in Villeret can only make a few hundred, limited by the number of extravagantly finished movements that they can turn out in a year. This is the type of watch I love to present. So let's get started. It's a big timepiece with a pocket watch-sized movement. 43.5 millimeters in gray gold. We'll talk about that in a moment. The 43.5 is the diameter. The thickness is 12.7, lug-to-lug 53.6 with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. But take a look at how close these lugs are drilled to the case. This isn't always how it's done on watches. Clearly, Montblanc understood that the watch is large and wouldn't fit most medium to smaller wrists. So by moving the pivot point of the strap as close to the case as possible, the effective distance across the wrist becomes a lot shorter than the lug-to-lug measurement. This is more like 50 to 51 once we move a few millimeters inboard of the lug on each side. This is why I'm going to be able to wear it when you take a look at this watch on my wrist in just a moment. And of course, a curved spring bar is used so that there's no impediment to the motion of the strap. It's not pressed up against the case flank. Now, my wrist is 16 centimeters circumference, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit more than usual here so you can see total proportion compared to my hand, compared to my arm. This is actually an acceptable fit. It does look large, but large is the style when you're wearing a pocket watch movement on your wrist. I believe this would be a comfortable watch for me to wear, and I love it enough that I would in fact wear it. So if you have a 16 centimeter circumference wrist like mine and your wrist is flat across the top like mine, definitely at least give it a shot. Otherwise, you're guaranteed to get a good fit with a wrist 17 centimeter circumference or larger. Now, it's not super thick. It's got a concave bezel. It's under 13 millimeters. It will fit underneath the dress cuff, and it's very much a dress watch, although it has some sporty features. Taking a quick look, we talked about gray gold. Gray gold is an 18-karat white gold alloy that's white all the way through and never needs to be rhodium plated. It's the good stuff. It's what you find on Grubel, JLC, Rolex, and it's what you find right here. The strap is large rectangular scale alligator leather with very symmetrical scales, and this is a very expensive cut of the beast. When you have large rectangular symmetrical scales, that's the expensive part of the hide. Matte finish, monotone stitch. There's a sheer cut edge showing the layers of leather. You could see it's part of the Villeret 1858 collection. No crimping, no gouging on the bottom, calfskin across the bottom. We have a matching Montblanc white gold pin buckle for quick adjustments, and it's nicely fluted and concave faceted. Taking a quick look at the case, we also have fluting on the lugs, which has just a wonderful effect at breaking up their apparent mass. They are also tapered and flatted out somewhat on their bottoms. The case flank is polished and sheer, and the lugs are stepped out a bit from the case band. Taking a quick look at the bezel, it is concave to pair the visual mass of the watch. We have a mono-pusher chronograph with the Montblanc logo, which is a peak of Montblanc. And of course, if you look close enough, you could see it's an insert of mother of pearl. The dial is Grand Faux enamel. You can see right there, Émail Grand Faux, that is French for enamel. Great fire, and the great fire means it's been fired many times, up to 20 times at 800 degrees Celsius to take vitreous or glass-based black paint and then distribute it evenly and fire it smooth in a kiln, again at 800 degrees centigrade. And so you wind up with a solid gold base on top of which the black glass-based paint is applied. The glass melts, and then it becomes smooth and lustrous. And what you get is a dial that will never tarnish or oxidize or age, just like an old pocket watch. And it was often done this way in the past. What's really impressive here is that it's black, but it's as smooth as lacquer. Enamel tends to have an orange peel texture, and as close as you get to this, you won't find any of that. Black enamel betrays every flaw. So to be able to execute this and make it look like lacquer is truly impressive. It's a lovely sporty tritone, black, white, and red. We've got a telemeter scale and a tachymeter scale. Telemeter scale starts low and then adds up the distance. The idea here, and it started with artillery in the field, you are at sea level, you watch the detonation, you start the chronograph, and when you hear the detonation, you stop the chronograph, and it will give you the distance in kilometers. Now the tachymeter, in a snailed profile at center, the tachymeter gives you speed, and so if you start and stop it very quickly, that means you are timing something moving very quickly, such as a race car over a kilometer. That's the classical example. And then the watch has that lovely combination of vintage elements. The dial is evocative of Minerva chronographs made from the 1910s through the 1930s, and that's specifically what they're going for with this Villeret 1858 vintage chronograph. Also important to note is that we have this pre-Art Deco style of numerals. They are Breguet Arabic numerals rather than Art Deco. They've also got a little bit of Art Nouveau flair to them. You can see right here, as the chronograph jumps, it is an instantaneous jump, old school chronograph jumper. On the reverse, we have the extraordinary caliber, 1629, which is, wait for it, 38.4 millimeters in diameter. It is substantially larger than thousands of traditional dress watches. This is bigger than our standard Rolex Datejust, and that's just the movement. You could see individual numbering out of 58 pieces, and also they tout the fact that it is made by hand, but that should be self-evident. And they remind you this is a Villeret Montblanc. This is not one of the lug pieces. Minerva was purchased by Richemont in the late 2000s and then paired with the Montblanc brand in 2007. So they bought it in 2006. They made it officially part of Montblanc in 2007 to try to raise their game in watchmaking, to give them the kind of cachet that companies like Lange and Vacheron and AP and Patek traditionally have. But the volumes are much, much lower, well under 1,000 Minerva movements per year, of which many are chronographs, but not all, critically. Now, it's a manual wind with a 55-hour power reserve, a very traditional slow-beating balance of enormous diameter, 18,000 vibrations per hour with an overcoil hairspring, so it keeps excellent time in every physical position. And you could see that the watch has a very handsomely decorated combination of column wheel and lateral clutch. Look at that devil's tail arrow index. The arrow is the symbol of Minerva, but what really strikes me here is that they micro-beveled the steel component and then created two sharp inward angles where the bevels converge on the arrow index, and then 3 points where the bevels converge on the tips. That's incredibly difficult to do on steel. And you can see every steel part here has been mirror beveled on its side and satinated on its top. Every piece of brass has either been engine turned, if it's the base plate, or striped with Côte de Genève. You could see chaton, golden cups holding the pivot jewels on the chronograph bridge. A lovely nod to the pocket watch area. You can see the jumper spring on the minute recorder for that instantaneous change. You can also see the column wheel entirely black polished, and every screw across the entire movement black polished on its top, chamfered on its circumference and its slot. You can really see that on some of these larger screws. Also, note the solarization of that ratchet wheel. Oh my God, that thing is an object of desire in and of itself. The action of the column wheel and the beauty of the lateral clutch, second to none. It feels and sounds sensational. We have black polish on the swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism, all these black polished pieces finished off with a diamond paste. And then we have wheels that have all been satinated. 30 meters water resistant, so don't take it swimming, but otherwise this is pretty much the ultimate watch. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.